better. So we're back from the powder coaters and Thomas has wrapped up all our parts for us. Super excited to get these out. Now, we didn't powder coat everything. Some of the steering components I've just sprayed after giving a good scrub with black engine paint. So engine paint doesn't need an undercoat or anything else at all. I just wanted the parts to match, but I didn't want to have too thick a coat on these parts just because of the way they work and they go together, which is why I left them off the powder coating list. Now, if you've ever had anything powder coated, let me just get some of this open. The benefit is that once it's done, it forms a much tougher, it's a very loud noise. It forms a much tougher paint compared to standard spraying or baking. So this part is off a 40-year-old car, no, 50-year-old car. And taking it to the powder coaters means that it's come back in better than factory condition. British Leyland, when they were running in the 70s, were a company that was struggling massively with financial difficulties, and because of that, inevitably, it led to them cutting corners on their cars and not really having the best build quality that you'd expect from any company. So, you know, as we rebuild this car, we should always, the way that I look at rebuilds, or especially this one that I'm doing, I'm always considering what a brand or a company would have done if money had been no object. And I think if Triumph back in the day had been able to afford to do stuff like powder coating or use materials that meant their cars wouldn't have rusted, there'd probably be a lot more Triumphs on the road than there are today. Another thing that we've got for this car, let me just get this, is our new shock absorbers for the front. Now, previously, I think the shock absorbers we had were standard, and we've kept the standard springs. They're all wrapped up here, ready to be taken out and fitted, and that's the first job that we're going to be doing today with our spring compressors. Now, the new shock absorbers are by a brand called Gaz. I've gone for these because they're adjustable, so I'll be able to adjust the ride height as well as the damper rebound on these shocks. So I've just got everything out of their individual wrappers, and I can't believe how good all these suspension parts are looking. The next job is going to be bushes. So I think whilst the parts aren't attached to the car, I'm going to get some of these bushes pressed in on my vise, just see if that gives me a bit of a extra helping hand. I think from what I understand, poly bushes, which is what we're putting in, will give us a stiffer ride, but they aren't one piece, so they push in from either side, and I'm hoping it won't be too much of a job. So we're using these proper old school spring compressors, and the thing with these is, because we've just had these shocks powder coated, I'm just going to wrap some masking tape around both ends. I couldn't find any rubber or anything to put in there, but just something in there just to protect it, and then we can start compressing those springs back up and getting them mounted. As I've said many times, I'm not a trained mechanic. I even actually took these springs to a garage to see if they would do it for me, but they wouldn't fit it on their floor mounted spring compressor. So I'm gonna have a go at myself and see how this goes. I've already taken them off, didn't go too bad. Will reverse be any harder? I've got no idea. Let's see what happens. So we've got, let me get you a bit closer. Once I've got this tightened up, I should be able to release my compression springs, and that should sit in there by itself. A few dumb mistakes whilst putting that together, but on the whole, super happy that I've managed to figure out how to do another job. Right, I'm gonna crack on with this second one, and let's jump on to the next part, getting this suspension put together. So one thing that I've done all the way through this build is make sure that I take plenty of photos with my phone as I take things off of it. And that's never gonna be as important as right now when stuff starts to go back onto the car. So the next thing is starting to mount up some of these Wishbones back onto the car. What we've done with the frame of the car before we're going to put anything back onto it is we've prepped it in something called dinitrol. So we scrubbed back all the chassis, which was in fantastic condition, applied some rust converter, and then the dinitrol went over the top, which is basically it's a wax-based rust inhibitor that also forms a crust. So things like wax oil won't. When you spray it on, it stays constantly wet. And the problem with that is if you ever want to go and work back on your car, you just get covered in crap. Whereas with dinitrol, when you get it on, you can work with it, you can touch it, it's not going to get all over your hands. It's fantastic stuff, and honestly, this chassis is looking fantastic. We have managed to get the right hand side top two wishbones in place, and the bottom one is getting there. They are really tight with the new poly bushes in place. So what we've done is just apply a little bit of grease, WD-40 style product, just to give it a little bit more slide, and we've got those top two in and they're now in place. I'm going to give myself about another 40 minutes tonight, because I'll be honest, hour and a half of swearing at this thing has kind of told me I need to have a little break from any mechanics for the rest of the night, plus it's getting quite late. So another thing that I realised last night, let me just show you with the little GoPro, is I've put one of these springs on the car, and initially you mount it up, complete beginner, and you put the shock adjuster facing out, because you're going to adjust it, but obviously the wheel's in the way, so that adjuster just there, that'll be on the inside of the car, so you get in behind the wheel and then you can adjust that. And we'll just spin up that second locking nut. You can just see on here how they've got these little teeth, and that's just hooks on with that tool. So we've had really good progress today on the suspension. We've got the road springs in, the shocks are in, upper wishbones, lower wishbones, new bushes, happy days. There's a few more things to go on there, like the trunnions and part of the steering system. But before we do that, I'm going to get a couple of things done on my newly powder coated wheels here. Let me give you a quick show of these. So these were on the car when I bought it, and they looked really bad at the time. They were originally chrome, but the chrome was too far gone. I didn't really fancy doing that again, given the place that we live on the coast in Scotland, really salty weather. So we've gone ahead and got these repowder coated in a really nice gold. I think they're going to look fantastic against the red of the GT6. Because we're going for something a little bit different, we've gone for the biggest tyre choice that we can do. So these are 175/70 R13, so they're a 13-inch rim, which is originally what would have come on the car. But they're slightly wider, slightly more beefy, slightly more sidewall, and the reason for that, again, in Scotland, even though the roads are fantastic for driving, there can be some pretty bad potholes up here. So the maximum amount of sidewall we can afford is what we really want to go for, so that we kind of soak that up in the tyre rather than running it through those bushes and everything else that we've just put on the car. Another upgrade that we're putting on this car are these Goodrich braided brake lines. Now, you can pick these up for about 60 bucks, I think. However, we went straight to Goodrich, and what I've done is I've gone for custom gold lines. Give them a little bit more of a race feel. We're going for these really cool looking Dunlop tyre stickers. Now, we're going to prep them now, get them put on the tyres, so by the time that we've done the rest of the suspension and steering, we can hopefully get our wheels on with these looking pretty awesome. So a lot of these stickers, you can get these off of eBay, and they'll come in pretty much any brand of tyre that you're going to buy. I wanted to go for Dunlop. I wanted to go for something British that kind of stuck to the car's heritage. These things are great. So they come with a little sander. They also come with super glue and gloves. Now, when you stick these on your tyres, all you need to do is rough them up and then put one strip of super glue down the centre. The mistake a lot of people make is to put like 3 or 4, and then it just wrecks your tyres as well. Whereas one strip, just wipe it in, happy days, that'll be bonded in literally seconds, and sometimes bond your gloves to there as well. But we'll do this last tyre. I've got a feeling these are going to look absolutely cracking when we finish the front of the car. Well, that's a couple more days smashed out on the car, and I'm really happy because we finally got to a point where the suspension has been rebuilt. We got those springs compressed, we got the swing arms put on, we've got the wheels put on, we've checked the bearings, everything's solid, everything moves well. I'm really happy with where we are. And I think the next time you see me, we should have this on the ground, wheeled back, so we can kind of reposition the car and figure out what we want to do next on it. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and I will see you next time.